Fifth Planning Board meeting to order. And Paul, do your thing, please.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law relating to the 2020 novel coronavirus outbreak emergency, January 5th, 2021, public meeting of the Falmouth Planning Board shall be physically closed to the public to avoid group congregation. Alternative public access to this meeting shall be provided in the following manner. 1, the meeting will be televised via Falmouth Community Television. 2, real-time public comment can be addressed to the planning board using the Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. This application will allow users to view the meeting and send a comment or a question to the chair via the chat function. Submitted text comments will be read into the record at the appropriate points in the meeting. Login instructions. Instructions for the meeting for this link, for this specific meeting, can be found in the following address: www.falmouthma.gov/planning. Please plan on 10 to 15 minutes of preparation time to log in, though it may be less if you had previously used Zoom on the device you'll be used to access this meeting. 3, additionally, public comment may be sent in advance of the meeting to planning@falmouthma.gov at least 5 hours prior to the beginning of the meeting. Documents and audio or visual video files may also be submitted via email. Submitted email comments and documents will be made part of the meeting record and may be read into the record, summarized, or displayed during the meeting at the discretion of the chair. 4, applicants, their representatives, and individuals with enforcement matters before the planning board may appear remotely and are not required to be physically present. Applicants, their representatives, and individuals with enforcement matters before the planning board may contact the planning department to arrange an alternative means of real-time participation if unable to use the Zoom virtual meeting software. Documentary exhibits and/or visual presentations should be submitted in advance of the meeting to planning@falmouthma.gov so that they may be displayed for remote public access viewing.
Thank you. And then also the minutes, Paul.
I recommend approval of the minutes of December 15th, December 22nd, 2020 as printed.
As printed. Okay. Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Does anybody have any comments? All in favor, show by hand, raise your hand. Bob, you in favor? And Pam, you're blank, I can't see. Well, she's attending, but I can't see how she's voting, so 6 out of the 7. Okay. Now, our public hearing is continued for the recodification, the zoning bylaw recodification, spring 2021 town meeting. And the article that is on here reads, to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw by repealing the existing chapter 240 zoning and adopting the recodified zoning bylaw as shown in a document on file with the town clerk, planning office, and at Falmouth Public Library entitled Town of Falmouth, Massachusetts Zoning Bylaw, Town Code Chapter 240, Articles 1 through 14, dated November 2020. And you saw in your packet, what was it, like 59 pages of comments that Bob and Bob had started commenting on. And it's boggling. I don't know if anybody else found it rather boggling, but I did. We have some correspondence from Bob Ament and from Laura Moynihan. And Tom, I think you were going to read those. I don't know what order you want to have this in, the discussion.
Yes, if it's fine with you, Madam Chair, I'd just kind of like to open the veil a little bit for the general public on the recodification matrix. And then go to comments, read the comments from Bob Ament and Laura Moynihan, if that.
Fine.
Very well. I am going to do a very brief screen share, although I don't expect anyone to be reading the things that are on the screen, just to give folks a little insight as to where we're at. So I believe what you're seeing on the screen, if I make it a little larger, is the matrix. It's a grid.
Yes, we are seeing that.
Let me get my cursor over. There we go. So from the comments we received from various local attorneys, Bob Mitchell and Bob Ritchie put together this matrix. It is 59 pages, and they have started to go through it. They worked for about 3 hours each, about 6 billable hours, and got through 11 pages of the 59 pages of comments. So here you'll see on the screen is the code that they put together about the consultant's response, the work group response, whether they agree to edit them or believe them to be phase 2 or reject the changes or don't understand them, or there's some additional discussion with the work group required. What we've seen from staff reviewing these is a lot of these appear to be phase 2 issues. Regarding clarifying the bylaw, moving things, eliminating things, rather than strictly through the recodification. But we asked for folks' comments, so we are taking them under advisement and we're working through them. As you see, as I scroll through this, the recodification comments go along. The comments are from who made the comments. These are Laura Moynihan's comments here. Ed Kurt's comments as well, Bob Ament's comments, and I'm going to forget somebody. And so forgive me for the attorney whose name I forgot. So we are in the midst of working through those. I'm going to stop screen sharing now. There are a number of things, and we got some additional comments this evening. And as we've talked about before, there's a lot of moving parts to the bylaw. And we are in the midst of, as I said, working through dealing with them. I do want to read into the record the comments received today from Bob Ament and Laura Moynihan. I gave them the option to not have to hang out with us this evening and read those comments. And I heard back from Bob and he thought that was fine. And I don't believe I'll have any objection from Laura from reading her comments as well. I am going to ask to elevate Frank. Oh, thanks. Frank's in the room now. Thank you, Justin, for elevating Frank. So these are comments received today. Officially, they were a little late than the 1 o'clock deadline, but given the fact that we're trying to move the process along and they are comments that would be made at the hearing, whether they were here or not, I think it's proper to read them because it moves the ball along. So from Bob Ament, dated January 5, 2021. Dear Tom, I have spent quite a few more hours carefully studying the proposed zoning bylaw recodification document. As I said when I sent the comments on November 17th, it's slow going, comparing the existing language from diverse portions of the current bylaw with the proposed provisions. Much of it not only reorganized, but changed in checking statutory references and cross-checking other details. I've still studied less than 1/3 of the document, though not just from the first third. I've seen enough errors to be concerned that the document has not been sufficiently reviewed and is not ready to be presented for consideration at town meeting. Perhaps all the comments you received and will yet receive can be incorporated into the document as appropriate to get a good result. Reformatting the present bylaw may be positive, though it's not an urgent matter that should be hurried, especially during the COVID emergency. But the effort to combine reorganization with changes in language throughout may be a mistake, taking on too much at once. Here are some examples of the additional problems, some of which are quite significant. I am not going to read all the particular comments in section 1 here, but this particular comment was about the chart of freshwater ponds elevations as posted in section 240 117B. The chart establishes contours bordering listed freshwater ponds from which 50 feet side and rear setbacks are measured. So Bob goes on for about the rest of that page to sort of discuss some of those concerns he has, particularly about those elevations in ponds. Item number 2, a major change, probably not intended, but one that many homeowners and developers and their attorneys might like, is the proposed section 240-11.3A1, which would replace current bylaw section 240-69 regarding lot coverage. Current bylaw has a maximum percent of lot coverage table that lists for the different zoning districts, maximum percentage of coverage, 1, by structures, and 2, structures, paving, and parking. This way it is displayed is not clear as it could be, but section 240-69C refers to lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking, and section 240-69 refers to coverage by structures and paving. The new lot coverage table now interprets the former structures and paving, structure/paving and parking to refer only to parking, paved or structured. Whereas now we calculate all paved surfaces, including patios, sidewalks, and driveways, in calculating total lot coverage. Under the new table, we would only be concerned with structures and parking. A parking structure apparently would not be limited to the lesser lot coverage allowed for structures. This goes beyond an attempt at reorganization and adjusts language that will have significant, substantial, substantive impacts. I think the better course of action would be to reorganize first and then methodically review and improve sections of the bylaw, perhaps not all at once. 3, sections 240-11.4A1, AI, would replace section 240-69A, which establishes a 35 front yard setbacks from Route 28 to 28A from Sandwich Road and from Route 28 to Otis Air Force Base. This new section changes that to read 35 feet from Route 28 to 28A to Sandwich Road and from Route 28 to Joint Base Cape Cod. This substantially changes and confuses the meaning, with the result that the setback from Sandwich Road would drop to 25 feet. Again, changes the language rather than reorganizing has unintended consequences. 4, I've checked a few of the statutory references, and there are a number of errors. For instance, the definition of kennel, commercial, has a new language that refers to GL Chapter 140, Sections 136 and 137A through D. There is no Chapter 140, Section 136. The section was repealed in 1954. The proper reference would be to 140, 136A, 137, and 137A through D. Later in the same definition, there is a reference to pet shop listed under GL Chapter 140, Section 136A. The proper reference for the pet shop license is Chapter 129, Section 139A. The definition of principal structure refers to encroachments allowed under Section 311.0 of the State Building Code. That section, 780 CMR 311, has to do with storage and encroachments. All references should be verified, and I should note for the record that we are in fact in the midst of referencing those different changes, statutory changes. That's my comment. Thank you. 5, new section 2240-11B5 misstates the generally allowed height of an accessory structure, which was changed from 18 feet to 22 feet at the 2018 April town meeting. 6, there are a number of subsections references in section 240-11.4, which should refer to specific subsections of that section, but an error referred to section 240-11.3. I have noted other section reference errors in other parts of the recodification document that I have reviewed. In this letter, I have mentioned some clear errors. Since I have only studied a portion of the proposed recodification, I expect there are more matters of concern. There are many other changes in language that seem unnecessary and are in some cases confusing. I hope that the recodification will be an advance in itself, better organizing the present bylaw and establishing a platform for further review and improvements in the future. I'm concerned that the proposed document may not be an improvement because it tries to do more than what I believe was intended in the first phase. Insufficient attention may be given to many changes being made. With this letter, I am enclosing a copy of what I sent you on November 17th, 2020. I hope this issue, I note that there will be corrected. So to note, Mr. Ahmed's comments from November 17th, as well as ones from today, have been forwarded not only to the planning board, but to our consultants and are in the queue as we review the bylaw changes proposed. Second, from Laura Moynihan, I received via email today at 3:44 p.m. Dear Tom, thank you for sending the matrix. I reviewed Attorney Ahmed's correspondence dated January 5, 2021, and agree with his comments. There do appear to be substantive changes to the zoning bylaw that may or may not be intended in the drafting. I believe the current draft goes well beyond recodification of the bylaw. I also believe that town meeting approval for such changes will be very difficult. The planning board may wish to request that consultants identify specifically the substantive changes through highlighting text, such as the board has a clear understanding of what substantive changes are proposed, what the intention is with respect to the proposed change, and perhaps then the board can decide on a case-by-case basis if that should be presented to town meeting at phase 1 stage or left to phase 2 amendments. I would think that this also prepare the planning board for expected town meeting members' inquiries and question those changes. Thank you again for the opportunity to comment regards Laura Moynihan. So as I said, we have been vetting the comments that come in. Our consultants have started with that, as well as the staff as we work through those things. Those are the comments that we have received in addition to the previous comments that are included in the matrix. And we will be working through those to see where we're at moving into the future. And with that, I will turn the floor back over to you, Madam Chair.
Okay. I'm not quite sure what to say to those comments, except I get the feeling when I'm looking through the matrix of being overwhelmed. And I really did not believe that we had changed. We were not supposed to have changed the substance of the bylaw. What we were changing was erroneous references to law. Yes, I know that, Bob. He's saying that Tom did not read totally his about the many errors in the heights of waters. Anyway, there are evidently substantial errors in here. I believe they were unintended. Charlotte, I know you were very much involved. You're muted, Charlotte. I know you were very much involved, Charlotte, in this whole thing. And I know neither one of us thought that there were these kinds of errors, that most have been lifted, that we were changing erroneous references to statutes, that we were trying to clarify where language was not clear. In other words, not substantially changing, but both attorneys have said, oops, you've changed a lot of the meanings here. So I'd like to hear comments from the board. Charlotte, let's start with you because you were involved in this whole thing too.
I was. We sat through many, many meetings, and Pat, you very clearly stated our intention. Phase 1 was to reformat, not to change. We did not want to make any changes. We did want to get correct references for the statutory things, change where we had incorrect statutory references. So those would have been changes, but that would have been based on state law. But we didn't want to change anything in our now enormous bylaw, but it's a huge task. And a couple of things. One, Tom didn't read, but our two faithful consultants, Bob and Bob, have put in a number of hours to create that 59-page matrix of the comments that we have received so far. But they point out in their cover letter that they have long ago used up the hours for which they've been paid, so that they have not been on the clock for this. We really are abusing our own consultants in this. So we shouldn't imagine that the consultants are going to do what is an enormous amount of work. We now have successfully enlisted very expensive local professionals. The real estate attorneys who are most experienced with our bylaw have given their time freely to answer our question. We wanted to give them an opportunity to be able to stand up at town meeting and say, yes, This is just a reorganization. It's not a change. Have confidence. And they have responded to us that they can't say that. They're not saying that. And I went through the matrix. The matrix is 59 pages and it's incomplete. They didn't get through all of it. They really only got through what they said was about 20% of it. So in the first 20% that the 3 local attorneys have looked at, they managed to find substantial changes that probably were unintentional. So keep that proportion in mind. And out of the pages, the 11 pages that our consultants for free looked through, they found 31%. They agreed with Bob Ament and with Laura Moynihan and Mr. Kirk that yes, these are errors, and they would accept the changes that the attorney said. So 31% error rate in 11 pages. I mean, it's really quite a high error rate. And for the rest, there's they rejected only 24% of the comments as being, no, they're not going to accept that. So my own reaction to looking through what the matrix that Bob and Bob supplied and reading the letters of the 3 professionals whom I really respect is, oh, wait a minute, this is not ready to go to town meeting. We're at the middle of January. It has to go to the warrant at the middle of next month. We're not ready. And it would be, I think, very damaging to the reputation of the planning board to bring something to town meeting that we ourselves know is filled with mistakes. I just don't think it's not good for the town. So that's my reaction to date. I'm looking forward to hearing from other people, particularly Frank. Frank sat in with us on all of our working sessions. Irie sat in on a couple of them. Frank, I wonder what your reaction was to Laura and Bob and Mr. Kirk's comments.
Well, I'd like to just personally take this couple of minutes to thank Bob and Laura and Ed Kirk for the effort that they put into this. We intentionally went out to people in the real estate community and asked for their suggestions, their comments, and their input because we value it. And we know very well that town meeting, if the matter is brought before them, is going to listen to them and to their comments. So I think that I have looked at the material that they have submitted. I concur with Charlotte that we have a lot of work to do here to prepare a document that will go to town meeting with the approval and the assent of most of the people who are most directly affected by it, mainly the attorneys, the engineers, the building people. And if we try to do it without their approval and assent, I think we're just going to lose the only really good opportunity we have to get this done right.
Right.
May I hear from other members of the planning board? Pam, you're on mute, Pam.
Not anymore. As I was poring over everything today, I had already gone through it briefly, and I thought this is in no way, shape, or form. I don't want to be repetitious from what Charlotte said, but we're trying to make this process easier for builders and lawyers and everybody else that comes into Falmouth, as well as ourselves, to have a cogent, synthesized bylaw. And we are nowhere near that. We just aren't. And so I would be not in favor of bringing this to town meeting until this is all done. I mean, it's, we make some effort and we make some progress on parts, and we change the language and we change the directory portion so it's easier to follow. But there are just too many things that need far too much change to bring it forward.
Is there anybody else on the board who wishes to comment? Frank, yes.
One of the comments I would make is that I think the effort lost some steam when we started to meet remotely. We had very, very good meetings when we were around a table talking to each other, and we had the Bobs in the room and we could discuss these issues. Once we lost that, I think we lost the thread of this. And hopefully we can go back to the in-person meetings. I think they're much more valuable. This is one thing that I don't think translates very well into remote participation.
Anybody else? Paul?
Yeah, this has been going on for about 3 years or more, and obviously everyone wants to move forward because it's a source of concern for everybody who uses the bylaw. And I think we have to move on it. My understanding is we have a framework change that's been submitted to the state, and that can go forward and come back to us. Is that correct? Before we get into the minutia of these items?
Not
No.
exactly, no.
So we can't even go to the state to get the framework done first.
No,
No.
it's the whole package.
Well, then there's no point in trying to push it into town meeting at this time.
Okay. Okay, now that everybody has made, yes, Bob?
I agree with everyone that this isn't ready for prime time yet. And frankly, when after having viewed what we've seen up to this point and then getting this and seeing how many changes, I was just really shocked and kind of disheartened by it. And because I really wanted to push this forward for this town meeting because I'd like to move on to phase 2. But I don't think we're ready. So I would advise that we hold off on it.
Okay. Paul?
Yeah, another comment too. We are still missing an assistant town planner would be a big help in this production here. As far as I know, there's no short-term solution at this time. So with everyone having all the problems with COVID and trying to get things done at town hall, I think we'd just be piling up a lot of different things. We need that assistant person in to work along with our consultants and move on this. So I think we have no choice but to delay this.
Right. Okay. Yes, John.
Yeah, I would like to say that looking at the documents and the feedback, that there really was a tremendous amount of good work done here. A majority of it is satisfactory, and it's a big step forward. But at this point we have to stop and fine tune what we have and come back at a later date. And I think that Mr. Duffy has a good point. Trying to do these things under the Zoom is extremely difficult. All of our meetings are very difficult now, let alone something this technical and this far-reaching. But I think they did a great job so far, and we have a very complicated set of bylaws. So I think we've done well so far, but it needs to be fine-tuned at a future date.
I think, yes, Charlotte?
I just wanted to say a couple of additional things. One, when you look at the 59-page matrix, you think, oh my God, and it's only for part of it. What would it be like if it were the whole thing? You have to understand that in order to explain a mistake, even if it's a tiny mistake, it takes a lot of paragraphs. So John is really right on the money there to say that most of it is okay. And when you get to looking at but bylaws by their nature, they're technical and they're incredibly detailed. It's not like a long story narrative. It's detail after detail after detail after detail. So it's not to say that it's filled with mistakes. It's a doable project. And I think Frank's right. Once we can get together again, but we're going to have to, I believe we're going to have to refinance this effort with our consultants because we don't have the staffing, as has been pointed out over and over. We're understaffed. So this should lead toward, already we were going to consider tonight looking for money for phase 2. We seem to be concluding we haven't finished phase 1. I don't know what number we would settle on for the right amount to complete phase 1, but we're going to need help with it. And the other thing I had wanted to say, I am very grateful to Bob Ament, to Laura Moynihan, and to Mr. Kirk for giving their time to the town for this. And we know we're going to go back to them and ask for more. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. And I also wish to echo Charlotte's thanks. We could not be doing this as we are without the aid of the town professionals who are taking a critical look at this, both for its accuracy and how it will work. I too have felt for a while that we're nowhere near ready to take this to town meeting. I know I would have difficulty standing up in front of town meeting and answering questions on this, particularly since it appears that we went further than anybody thought we did. I didn't think we had made a lot of substantive changes as we did, or as Laura and Bob say we have. So I think we really do need to step back, take a much closer look at it. And if at all possible, I think that the monetary article we should be asking for is to have a continuation of phase one so that we can pay our consultants from phase one to take us to a really good completion of phase one. Frank?
Well, the warrant closes next Friday, but for next Friday, we only have to submit an article with the words "a sum of money," and we can plug the money in at a later date. So perhaps Tom will have some time to figure this out.
And do you think that is reasonable, Frank, to be looking for a continuation of phase one with none of us having realized the massiveness of the task?
Well, it was obviously massive when we were undertaking it, but it's certainly not complete. And it's only fair, and in fact, it's totally appropriate that we get enough money to finish the project and that we have started and do it right. So an article, I can, with your assent, put together an article for requesting a sum of money to complete the project, and Tom will be tasked with trying to figure out what that sum of money is.
Does the board concur with that? May I have a show of hands? Okay, we are all in favor, Frank, of
Okay.
your doing that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So we will not be going before with a warrant article for the Springtown meeting in regard to the recodification. We have too much work to do on it. And we are then seeking additional funding for the completion of it. Okay, is there any? Yes, Paul.
But we are going forward to request funding to continue the work.
Oh, that we already did a show of hands on, yes. We're definitely going to try to do that and see if we can get some additional funding that Tom will try to ascertain what our consultants consider a reasonable amount to be able to finish the task. Okay?
Can't stop now.
No, can't stop now, that's for sure.
Ready, and I will have that information. I will have that information back to the board for our meeting next week, which is still in advance of the deadline.
Great. Thank you, Tom. And thanks, Frank, for your comments on that too. Appreciate it very much.
One last thing, Pat.
Yes,
I don't think it's really been brought to the attention in a public hearing, how much the professional staff, particularly from the ZBA and the planning board, of course, and the law department, the building commissioner at times, have been critical to this entire job and Noreen particularly, need to be continued to be assigned to work on it.
yes,
Their expertise is critical.
absolutely. So have I missed anything else? Okay, fine. So we will move on to planning board discussion, warrant articles for spring 2021 town meeting. Obviously, we've already decided, zip, we're taking out the zoning recodification.
Right.
Okay? But we are putting in funding in its place. Funding for completion. Okay. Site plan review bylaw changes. Has everybody had a chance to look at that which was sent us?
All righty, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I do have Michaela with us, who is ready to walk you through the document that she's provided for you.
Okay. Hi, Michaela.
Hi.
And Frank gets the rest of the night off at this point. So
Okay.
thanks for being with us, Frank.
All right, if it's okay with everyone, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so that we can have the site plan up on the screen for everyone to see.
Mhm.
All right. So hopefully everyone can see that. So the first change that we have, excuse me, I'm just gonna get my notes, is that our current site plan calls for 1,000 square feet. Going through other municipalities and what they have, and seeing what would work for the town of Falmouth, we're suggesting a change to 500 square feet. Additionally, previously it was 5 parking spaces. We're changing to 2 parking spaces, or a change to the layout or location of 2 or more parking spaces. We also added in grading or clearing more than 10% of a lot. There have been some examples of there not being a change in square footage or not being a change of parking spaces, but there's clearing of the parcel. So we're adding that into the bylaw as well. The other change is that we've added in a minor site plan review. The current site plan doesn't have minor reviews. So I've provided the planning board 2 options. The planning board can go with option A, option B, or if you guys would rather not have any minor site plan review included, as is currently the case, that is obviously up to the board as well. Oh, I'm sorry. Did someone just stop? The main differences. Oh. Okay, sorry, I thought I had my pages mixed up. The main difference is that option A, it would be the town planner to grant administrative approval. Option B would be the building commissioner may authorize work without site plan review. So it's really who holds the decision between the 2 options. So I don't know if we want to go through all of this and then we can kind of go back and discuss some of the options, or if you guys would like to pause here and discuss those options, I'm happy to do either way.
I think right now, tonight, it would be probably most informative before we lose the thread on this to, does anybody want minor site plan review to be added in?
Yeah.
Can you give Michaela feedback on that, Bob?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing because we're talking about making things easier for people. And if someone come into the planning office and say, I want to change this to my property, and it comes under the purview of a minor site plan, and it can be done right there in the office, I think that's fine. And I would opt to have option A. I'd like to keep it in-house.
Jim's got a comment as well.
Okay, Jim?
I think my only problem is with the square footage, that someone could have a 10,000 square feet of new roofing and not have 250 or 500 square feet of floor, and they could avoid a site plan review. I think that's an inherent problem.
Is there any other comment on this?
Yes.
Okay, John.
Regarding the minor review, I would prefer option B, which is pretty much what we have right now. The building commissioner handles these things, and it's never been a concern of him handling them in the past. It is all minor situations, and I think that's the way it should stay with option B.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, my comments on this is I prefer, yes, Charlotte.
How minor is 2,000 square feet? That doesn't sound minor enough to be minor. And could Jim please explain how the roof got bigger than the floor?
Right.
This allows, what happens with this bylaw, the way it's written, is because if they don't put a floor in, they can put an unlimited amount of roofing area in and avoid site plan review as long as there's not a floor. Because if it doesn't have a floor, our bylaw says it isn't a structure. And
Therefore,
therefore,
what would you propose?
I would go to back to the 1,000 square feet of roof area and call it a structure if it's bigger than that. I think, to me, that's the biggest problem, is they're leaving a loophole if you don't want to put a floor in, and it's an unlimited size with no site plan review, and that's been used several times. That's,
Okay, so that's a change that you would like Michaela to work on. Is that correct, Jim?
well, I'm just pointing it out. Everyone knows that I've brought this up over and over again, and not everyone agrees with me. I just want to point it out. It's still
Yeah.
there.
But this is the place to do it now, I
This is the
think.
place to do it. If there's going to be a chance to address it, it's now.
Yep. Charlotte?
Could we address it by, first, without talking about how many square feet, but where it says some number of square feet or more of gross floor area, add or roof area?
That would solve the
Mhm.
problem.
Yeah,
That would solve the problem.
certainly it
Right?
would.
So why
Just to
not
clarify, this is in applicability in that
yes,
paragraph? Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
just add or roof area.
Mhm.
And that, and Jim, you agree that would fix that?
Absolutely. That's the only issue. Yeah.
Okay,
And then on what becomes minor? If 1,000, what we have now is 1,000, right?
Correct.
And so we're trying to bring it down to 500 to come under some form of review, but make it expedited. So how high should we make the ceiling? Should it go fully to 2,000? That's kind of a big thing. And 10 parking spaces?
I was
don't-
okay with Michaela's
yeah,
work on that issue.
the change is there already as to when it comes for site plan review, right, Jim? Yeah.
Yes. My
Okay,
only
now,
exclusion is just the exclusion only floor area. That was my only
Yeah.
issue.
Well,
understood.
no, okay, I think we agreed on that, but now I've gone on to another point about how big is a minor change? Is it 2,000 square feet? Is it 1,500 square feet of floor or roof?
Well, for
2,000
reference,
sounds like a lot.
2,000 square feet is my entire space of my gallery. It's the whole thing.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's huge.
I don't know why we would go that high.
I think the intent is to allow landowners to make minor changes without getting caught up in a lot of paperwork, just improving their site area, moving a few things around.
Correct. I was just gonna jump in and say that it's, you guys absolutely have the right under option A to say, you know, you're going to 2,000 square feet and we feel you're making too many changes and too many alterations. This is just an option if someone says, I want to alter my building slightly, that this is just an easier process for them to go through. But you guys can absolutely, when they come to you, say, we feel this is not a minor plan. We feel this is a full site plan.
Well, not if it goes to the building commissioner. We'll never see it.
That would be
never
option
ceases.
B.
Right. So, but if it's option A and it stays in the planning office, maybe we would see it, maybe we wouldn't. But I don't know how we could put in a word like slightly. I mean, that's word
got
we
another
could
su-
litigate by. What's
I have
slight?
another
We need to pick- Hmm?
I have another suggestion. I like John, think that we should go with option B, change the building commissioner to planner or planning board, whatever,
That
but
would be
planner,
A.
and add A and B from right above, where redevelopment or alteration of a site or the interior of a building in such a manner a proposed site or building function is anticipated to generate unreasonable visual, and B, an existing site that becomes a nuisance. So these are contraindications that they can happen. So that's my suggestion. But then we don't get into the 2,000 square feet and 10 parking spaces. And we're also keeping control of it within the planning board, the planning office. Tom?
Yeah, I know that Rod and I have had a lot of conversations about the building office being involved in site plan review. And he has said to me consistently, we do permits, we do buildings, we do structures, but we don't necessarily do site plans. So I think from my perspective, the building commissioner is likely more comfortable with any modifications to site plan coming through the planning office. In fact, we had a conversation today about Cumberland Farms that you'll see in a couple weeks about a couple of minor changes they wanted to make. The contractor talked to Rod sent them to me. I talked to the contractor today. So just from the perspective of what the current building commissioner is comfortable with and in general, they're comfortable with putting up buildings and inspecting buildings, but not necessarily inspecting sites.
So what I've just stated would lend more comfort. That we go with option B, but change it to town planner.
Yeah.
And I like the language under option B also because it gives more definition.
Pat, I think that your labeling might have a problem.
Yes, you're doing it
Option
backwards.
A is the planning board. Option B is the building commissioner. And
I've
what we're
changed that.
doing is, we want to keep it in the planning, the town
Right.
planner. Okay.
No, no,
so
no.
that's
Option
A.
B, I said the town planner instead of building commissioner. Cross out building commissioner.
Well, what we'll do is have Michaela mark that up and we'll be talking about it next week, but let's keep talking about it, but we'll make sure that we clarify all those proposed changes
Okay,
at our meeting next week.
But we agreed with adding for roof area, right?
right.
I'll open, add that right now.
Okay, so Michaela, do you want to continue then?
Sure, absolutely. So following this would be waived requirements. So this would give the board a little bit more room to waive some of the requirements that you guys have for site plan. So again, there's two options, option A and option B. And for option A, I apologize, I'm actually going to correct myself a little bit on this one. I realized after the fact that we've actually gone back at a previous town meeting and taken certified mail out. So I apologize, that was my mistake. I'm not recommending putting it back in when we just had a town meeting vote to take it out. We don't have to do that again. So I will remove that. But let me see. But so again, you have two options. This would just be a matter, some of the bigger ones is how many members would be voting on it. This should be a vote of, this should say, I apologize, 5 out of 7. And then this would be a vote of 5 members. And all abutters would be notified. So there's a little bit of difference between the two. But again, it just kind of gives the board some options to be able to go through the site plan and waive the requirements. It seems that, you know, some of them may be a little unnecessary for minor changes.
Yep. I frankly like option B better. It's less complex. And that is how we do it right now. The applicant, with the submission of the site plan review, will submit for waivers, whatever waivers they would like, and we either grant it or we don't grant it. So I'm just putting in my feeling to begin with that option B I like better than option A. What about the rest of the board?
Simple works for me.
The simpler and the easier it is, sorry, the easier it is for people to navigate through this, the better off I think we'll all be with it.
Mhm.
Okay. So it sounds like more are leaning towards option B, which I agree, simple language works.
Charlotte?
Simple works for me, but I don't know where the 3 out of 5 members comes from.
No, it'd be.
That was a mistake.
Mhm.
What would you want? 5 out of 7?
5 out of 7.
And that is likely an artifact from a bylaw that had a 5-member planning board.
Uh-huh.
I think we borrowed these things from other towns.
Mhm. And then all the way through procedure, that's our current bylaw.
Correct. The next bigger change was the addition of environmental. This came about at a recent town meeting. There was discussion about environmental impacts and the importance of protecting the Falmouth environment. So the planning office felt it was important, based off of many of those discussions, to add some components into the site plan bylaw. So all of these have been taken from other communities that have environmental site plan included. So happy to take notes on any of them.
Then I think again, I'm throwing in on here right up front. We usually defer and we say it's the Board of Health that needs to determine refuse disposal, sewage disposal. That's not under our purview. Even environmental, we defer to them in our.
Anything happening?
Left Warren is way ahead of Warren.
So I don't know what you feel about that. I think let's go one by one. Protection of unique or important natural, historic, or scenic features. You want to keep that in? Okay, I don't hear any comments, so I guess we're going to keep that in.
Pat, could I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
It's true. There are other boards that look at these things. So does this mean that for site plan approval, it needs to circulate among the boards? Certainly, we're not trying to, take their authorities unto ourselves.
Right.
What would be the process on this? Because now we do have a process for making sure that the other offices have looked at everything and told us that they're okay. Or not.
Yeah.
I mean, we have been relying on the engineering department for the soil erosion plans and things like that. Anyway, so we take that into consideration. We have an engineer report that says the plan is inadequate, then we may not grant approval. So I don't know if we need to include this or if we're already doing it now anyways.
Well, I don't think things go to the Historic Commission before they come to us. And yet here we would be looking at historic or scenic features. Are we really prepared to do that? Is that a right thing to do?
No.
And the others that Pat has pointed out. It looks like this creates a new process.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
I think Tom wanted to make a comment.
Okay, Tom.
Yeah, I was going to say, we do refer every application that we get into the various functional departments. I know the Historic Commission has actually asked to be included in those. So it's quite possible that we may incorporate the Historic Commission as one of our referrals. For the most part, we know whether a property is in the historic district or not. But I think it's probably fine to include in our process sending a referral to the Historic Commission when we're have a piece of property that's in that, and we can kind of sharpen our pencil on how we go about doing that. But all these functional departments, health, water, wastewater, they all get copies of the referrals, and oftentimes their comment back is not applicable, but we always send it out to them to make sure.
Okay, I would say from site plan review, we certainly can look at the first one because we do historic walls, all that sort of thing. That's part of what we look at. I would say the next three are other departments that you're already weighing in on a development of any sort, I think.
But you could look at this as streamlining. If this is going to create a process that makes sure that we have had the correct offices check off on these, that's good. It streamlines something.
So how did you want to do that, Charlotte? Just get rid of those next three because it's...
No, not get rid of them. Have an understanding that this creates a process that includes the appropriate offices and professionals.
Then it's a different statement altogether in here.
Well,
under environment. No, that's fine.
Yeah,
We're creating this.
Well, we get referrals from these people. For every one of these, we get referrals.
Mm-hmm.
It's already the process.
we used to get a checklist, you know, it just had all the offices and we had a check against every box, had it been there or not. We were more aware of it as a result of that checkbox.
So what you're saying is that as part of the site plan review, we need to have referrals from these various departments.
But
Before,
Well, John says we have them. Tom says if we don't, we can get them.
When do we determine how refuse gets disposed of? I mean, you can't get a building permit without
right,
telling the building department where you're going to dispose of your refuse. I mean,
right.
I don't think that's part of a site plan review.
I don't either. That's why I was suggesting, let's just get it out of there.
And on the first one, I really have a hard time trying to figure out what's a scenic feature and whether or not we even have the right to determine whether a scenic feature should be part of a site plan review or not. I think that's
Okay.
taken it a little too far.
Okay,
Pardon me, Pat. You
Yes,
can't-
Jim.
I've been trying to raise my hand for a few minutes and you can't see
oh,
me.
I can't see you.
So I had to interrupt.
Yeah, you have to.
Undo the screen share.
When,
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
that-
sorry.
part of the, when you apply for a building permit, okay, you have to go and get, the historic commission has to sign off, whether it's in their jurisdiction or not. It's done day one on the building permit. And we're talking about a whole nother level getting referred to site plan review. So we're all trying to make sure that historic's already there. They're already there day one. If you ever apply for a building permit, they give you a checklist and you got to visit all these different town departments, and one of them is historic, it's conservation, all the departments, the financial, whether you paid your taxes, there's a whole bunch of things there. Historic gets to jump in right away.
Right.
And I don't think we have to protect, I think they're protected well. We don't have to go back again. They see it before we do.
At what point in the process does site plan review happen? You're saying you get a building permit before
Well,
you get a site plan approval?
No, what would happen is if you're going in for a building permit and the building commissioner looks at this, it says, oh, you got to go to site plan review. That's right away. But they also have to get historic at the exact same time. Where you're giving historic a double check by worrying about it. It's okay. I'm just pointing out the practical matter is they see it. If you fill out a building permit, you got to get a sign off that it's whether or not it's in their jurisdiction or not. Same
No,
with
I'm just trying to-
conservation.
You understand the process a lot better than I do. If I'm a developer or I'm a person who wants to develop something, to which office do I go first? I can't imagine I would go initially to the building commissioner for a permit. I would go to the planning department. Where do you go first?
I usually go to the building department, ask for a quick conference and say, okay, what do I need to do? If you go to the front desk, they hand you a checklist of what you need to do. But I try to, most people talk with the building commissioner and he says, well, you're going to need this, 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 and this. Come back when you get it done.
You
Please,
typically,
please remember what we're talking about here excludes single and two-family homes. This is commercial or
Understood.
multifamily,
I
okay?
understand that.
Oh, okay. And Bob, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, Charlotte brought up the checklist that we used to get. I thought that was great because it listed everything and through historic and conservation and engineering. And if anybody needed to submit a report along with that, we got it. It was just a quick and easy reference. So we knew what hoops they had to jump through, and they also knew. And you could tell that they went to every office and got things checked off or not checked off.
Yep. Pam?
Why not have sort of a common application where you walk in and each office is represented, but you don't have to go and talk to somebody in each office. Maybe you talk to just Tom, but you pick up a Board of Health application, you pick up a building application, and you sort of make it much more cohesive and coherent rather than having to go from one to another to another to another and wait for that process to take place. I mean, I think we are evolved enough to do something like that. Just a thought.
Tom?
Yeah, a couple of things. Most people start their trip to the building department, and the building department says, I can't give you a building permit on this without site plan review. At the same time, we talk to lots of prospective developers here and suggest to them that first off, they talk to us and we sit down and do a conceptual plan before they get too deep into things to look at what those issues might be. So most people start with the building permit, building office, but we always encourage folks to come here and talk to us. And Rod and I talk on a pretty regular basis about, larger projects and things like that. And from this perspective of checklists, we may bring those back. We sort of incorporated those individual sheets you used to see from those departments into the staff reports.
Mhm.
In the staff reports, comments from building, comments from, comments from wastewater or whomever into those staff reports, but we could easily just hang the checklist on the back of it. But those comments we get from them, rather than you thumbing through those pages from those individual pages back from those departments, we typically plug those into the staff reports these days.
The checklist made a really great cover sheet.
Mhm.
Checklist is back.
Okay. Okay, moving on. The fifth one, when I looked at that, a lot of that is it's considered under the design review that we are developing.
The what?
Design review.
You're looking at 11 to 24.
2414. Provision of adequate landscaping, including the screening of adjacent residential uses, provision of street trees, landscape islands. Now, what I'm looking at is we could put some of those together with 11.2417. If you want to do a checklist for what we'd be looking at for environmental protection on any site plan review.
I don't know what's gained by trying to bunch them together.
Yeah,
It's easier to keep the landscaping one to itself, the lighting one to itself.
Fine.
I think
Fine.
we already do these.
Right.
You're right, we do, John.
We do, they're just spelling it out.
I think it's already spelled out.
And engineering takes care of soil erosion. I don't know that we have anything that we can do unless we are doing a permit about the protection from air and water pollution, flood, noise, odor, dust. So I think a lot of these are just not in our purview under site plan review.
I agree, 100%.
Okay, so those are out. Those two are out.
Okay, so 2415 is out.
Correct. And 2416 is also out.
Okay, I will remove those right.
Okay,
And 2412 went out and 2413 went out.
correct.
Okay, I wasn't sure if we had decided fully on those, so I was gonna circle back. So thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, I
Two-
think that the first four are out, I believe.
So
If I may,
Yes,
can I push back on 2413 adequacy of proposed drainage system?
that's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is one of the things that we spend a fair amount of time with, and one of those things that we're required to do frankly, under federal law, to make sure that we are not creating stormwater implications.
Okay, and that comes under site plan review. Okay,
okay, so I'm getting rid of 2410 to 24112.
correct.
Okay. And then we're gonna keep in 2413, as Tom just mentioned.
Correct.
And then were we going to keep in 24114?
No,
We are not? Okay.
No,
There's dissension on that.
we
As
have
to whether we
landscape
should or not.
requirements in our bylaws.
we already do these.
Yeah, we do.
We do every one of them.
Jim?
I know it's probably not practical, but it would really be useful if everyone on the planning board had to go down and see what it takes to get a building permit and what they make you do and all the offices you have to go to, because it would make this discussion a lot clearer if you actually had to do that.
See, I think when you're doing site review, I think some of these for landscaping is part of what should be put in there. Okay, I think we can put it in there even though we do it, but it helps the applicant if you spell it out a little bit more clearly.
Well, the applicant already has to have a landscaping plan. It's mandatory.
For site plan review,
Yes, it's mandatory.
okay? Charlotte?
Could I just seek a clarification? What
course.
Jonathan has said is true about every suggested addition here. They're already somewhere in our bylaws and they're part of our site plan review process. That's all very true. I thought what this thing is now supposed to be is more or less like a summary for people coming into the process to let them know these are the boxes that we're going to be checking. So it's not intended to be an initial discussion of anything or a summary of it. It's just an overview of this is what's going to be involved in site plan review.
But we already have this as a site plan review. You have to have a landscaping plan. You have to have a lighting plan. You have to have a parking plan.
Yes, and initiates know all this. That's true. But what about people who aren't the initiatives and they don't know about this? How do they get that overview? I've been down to the building department when first I got on the board and then a couple of times afterwards, and I picked up all those pieces of paper, Jim, and I looked at them. I was flummoxed by them. I mean, there's just so much of it. And they're not in any particular order. They're just here and here. You pick some up here and here. And it doesn't say, go see Mr. Know-it-all, he'll help you out. What Pam was talking about, sort of a one-stop, go here and they'll help you. We don't have that. And
Right.
this was working toward it.
That's the key. We don't have that. And we had talked about 4, 5, 6 years ago, an ombudsman that would sit there and deal with the person. Okay, here's what you have to do. And you're going to talk to all these different departments. Because an applicant's really left
Hanging.
hanging
Right.
there.
Okay.
If they're not familiar with it, even to what day you have to be in what department, sometimes that conservation only does it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. No one knows that unless you get some insider information.
And
Michaela?
suppose you're a small business owner and you're just starting out, and what you're seeing from all those pieces of paper is, Lord Almighty, I'm going to have to hire 5 really expensive professionals, or I cannot do anything. That's the mess.
Michaela?
So I think everyone in town actually agrees with what you guys are saying. We're currently working on getting new permitting in town, online permitting that would do exactly that. An applicant could come, they could apply through the online permitting, and by clicking, by going through kind of a quiz, I guess I'll say, a survey, it'll tell you exactly which departments based off of those answers you would need to go to, with the idea that it would simplify it. So it would tell you right off the bat, you need to go to conservation, you need to go to planning, and you'll need to go and get a building permit, which, everyone should kind of know they're going to need a building permit ultimately. But the idea is to streamline it to do exactly that. So hopefully people would know the process a little bit better. So I just wanted to let that be known.
So the point still remains, do we want to keep these 2 large paragraphs in here about lighting and landscaping? Do we want to simplify them and keep them in? Or do we want to get rid of them?
Can I read a sentence here?
Please, John.
Okay, so under 2414, in the middle of the paragraph, where natural undisturbed vegetation already exists on site prior to site preparation and clearing, the majority of the vegetation may be retained and included as part of the buffer, along with the addition of such new plantings, selective removals, and other management of site plantings as are determined to be necessary to maintaining an effective year-round visual screen. Now, that does not sound simple to me.
It's not.
I'd rather just have a site plan that shows the plantings that are going to be done. I'd like to know where these came from. These came from other towns. Am I correct? Could you
Yes.
give me some idea what towns these are from?
If you give me a moment, I can go back and tell you where. Oh. I thought I had included the various towns. Reading was one of them. I know Sudbury, Burlington, I believe Amherst was one of them as well. Amherst, Reading, Ipswich, Sudbury, Burlington were some of the major ones I looked at.
Nothing like Orleans or Chatham or Barnstable or,
Well, we had asked our consultants, as more of the free work they were doing for us. Bob, can you give us some ideas about some people around the state who've got some good site plan bylaws? So based on their recommendations, we went and looked at what those towns had to offer.
I'm sure that's fine, but I don't think we're anywhere near the same town that Burlington is. Anyway, I have a real problem with most of these. I really do. We already have a really fine site plan review, and we've had no complaints about it. We've handled it very well. I just don't understand why we need to complicate it. That's my feeling.
And that's my feeling when I was reading it too, John. I like this whole thing that we're just discussing right now. If we wanted to put a one sentence in there, it could be adequate screening shall be maintained between properties.
But we already have that, and we tell what the screening has to be. It has to be a mound of dirt, what, 3 feet high, 4 feet high, fencing,
Right.
and then natural screening. We already have
it.
It's already
Yes.
defined.
Charlotte?
The only real problems we have that we were trying to solve with this were in the very first page of what Michaela
Right.
prepared, and are very helpful to us. So
Correct.
that if we changed to the 500 feet so that we don't have something startling appearing and we never even heard
Mhm.
about it, that was what got us going on the number of feet. And if we add the roof area, then that solves another problem that we've been working on. And so 2 problems that we actually had, this provides a solution. But until we have the problem, let's not solve the others.
So cross this whole section out under environmental.
Yeah.
Okay?
That makes that nice and easy. I don't have to go through the numbers anymore then.
Thank you.
Okay. Implementation and completion of plan.
This is all existing.
It is. And actually, this is in conflict with 240-198 for timing.
I can
Lapse of
continue my
decision.
deletion and remove that while I'm deleting the
Yep.
rest then.
Yep, okay. So then we've got application requirements, which are currently in there. We have, all of the rest of this is what we already have. I just do not know why under lapse of decision, site plan was highlighted and planning.
I apologize. I believe that was because those were the search terms I used when I was finding it.
Fine, okay. So I think we've got what we've got here. We're going to put minor site plan review in. Correct?
From 1,000 feet to 500.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to put waived requirements in option B.
Mhm.
So that there's a little bit more definition under waived requirements. And then I'm going to make a further suggestion. We may be saying that our recodification is not ready yet for prime time, which I firmly believe it's not. But if we are putting changes to a bylaw in, and some of these are major, I would suggest that we put it in the recodified format so that we don't have to change it again. It's in our current bylaw, and we just add it into the recodified 240.
So
That's
we'll
going to
bring,
make it harder to explain at town meeting.
well,
No,
we're
it
gonna-
won't.
We're gonna bring you back next week, the cleaned up draft of this for us to take a look at. Second time around to make sure everything we talked about tonight's in that draft.
Mhm. Yep, and Charlotte, the reason I'm saying that is where, like, we're adding grading and so on. Remember how it bulletizes it so that it's easier to read? It disaggregates, so it makes it easier to read.
I see what you're saying.
Okay, John?
I would just like to ask one question, please.
Mhm.
On the very last one of our sheets here, 240-198, lapse of decision. It says site plan review will lapse within 2 years if it hasn't been substantially started.
Mhm.
Would anybody, I would like to have that 3 years. I'm pretty sure that's what the zoning board is right now, is 3 years.
Everything else has been changed to 3 years.
Fine. Anybody got a problem with that? Okay, so we're changing the word 2 to 3.
Thank you very much.
Sure, that's what this is all about. Thank all of you I want to thank all of you for your input on this. And I think we'll come up with something that we can submit to town meeting. And when I didn't want to confuse anybody, but the formatting under the recodified bylaws is so much easier to use. That's why I was suggesting that we
Yeah.
use that formatting for this one. Okay. Changes to zoning map. Has everybody taken a look at that?
I'll be happy to share a screen with the picture if you would like. If you'd like.
Does the board want to have that, or do you all understand what's going on? Because we've seen it and discussed it before.
We've seen it.
Is there anybody on the board who wants Tom to screen share? Do you have any questions? Okay, fine. No questions.
So essentially, we've got 3 different versions of the zoning bylaw. We used to come to the zoning map. We just need to bring this clean copy to town meeting to get the changes done. So what's the town clerk sells and what's in the bylaw and what's on the website are all the same thing.
Mhm.
Very
And
well.
we do not have a warrant article, do we yet, Tom, for that?
I believe that proposed warrant article is to see if the town will, hang on. Yes, to see if the town will vote to amend the official zoning map to remove text boxes of footnotes 1 through 8 and table of lot size, width, and frontage requirements, and add reference to all existing zoning overlay districts, including accident prevention, wildlife corridor, and large-scale ground-mounted solar, to remove inconsistencies with both the online zoning map and the hard copies available for purchase through the town clerk's office. And since Frank and I are working on zoning bylaw language or warrant language, we'll have Frank look at that as well for us. Jim?
Okay. Jim?
Yeah, I think to be clear, we're not rezoning anything. We're just cleaning up the graphics.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
But changing the map is an act of zoning.
Mm-hmm.
But the property, if they've been rezoned, they're already rezoned.
Yep, you're not changing anybody's zoning,
Right.
but
It's just reflecting it properly on the map.
yeah, and that map requires that town meeting vote to change.
Right. And that's the point we need to make to town meeting. We're not changing anybody's property. We're just making sure it's right. Everyone's using the same map.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah, somehow I'm not finding that bylaw language wherever in all this stuff I have here.
Second page of my Happy New Year's Eve memorandum.
I'll find it eventually. Charlotte?
Just want to say, on the proposed graphic changes that don't change anything but make it clearer to understand, I'm looking at this one where it's proposing to eliminate the fine print box and the legend. The legend, which explains what the colors mean on our zoning map, I think it's very useful to have the thumbnail quickie of the lot sizes. And I would not eliminate that. I would definitely get rid of the fine print one.
Well, a map typically has a legend on it, which would be what that part of the left side of that column is, but it typically doesn't have a chart on it that describes these various lot areas, lot sizes, and things like that. And that was
On the other hand, being atypical is not sinful. It can be useful, and to actually explain why there are these gradations of residential lots and so forth. The thumbnail on each, it's true there are other requirements, but the important big writing on those maps is this information that's given on the lot width, frontage, and total lot size. So I think it's very useful information to include in the legend.
Mhm.
But Charlotte, when you're saying that with the color coding, we changed zoning. So did
You're
you?
not changing anything.
No, no, no. But you see, if you don't want to eliminate that chart there, because it is helpful information.
This is the chart I'd like to see go. The
Yep.
fine print you can't
Yes.
even read.
Correct.
And
But
this is
that's
the
the one you
chart
want to have stay.
I'd like to keep this whole chart
Mhm.
and not eliminate these 3 columns.
Okay, what say the board on that?
I agree.
John,
It's fine with me.
to keep it.
Yes.
Jim wants to keep it. Bob wants to keep it. I'm in
Thank
sync
you.
once you describe that, okay?
We'll have we'll mark that up as the board discussed, and we'll have our this will be on the hearings that we're going to have for zoning changes on our February 9th meeting. So we'll mark that up, and that'll come back during the hearings for the town meeting articles.
Okay.
So the February 9th date will be the date for any petitioned articles that we received, as well as the hearing for changes to site plan and the map.
Mhm.
So, but we will be bringing back the draft site plan bylaw for you guys to look at to make sure we hit our stops on that before we submit the article. Okay,
Okay. Okay, time to move on, yes? Paul, committee reports. Paul has prepared one on the Transportation Management Committee.
I am ready with your presentation, sir, whenever you'd like me to run it.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, we're going to share the screen, and Mr. Dryer is going to chat while I do my very best to run his PowerPoint presentation. So that looks like a brief summary report, I hope.
I'd like to talk to you about this first. I've been asked to be the representative of the planning board on 3 committees. And I think these committees are pretty important, not because I'm on the committee, but they have impacts on the planning board and the planning department. Last October, I made a presentation on the transportation, the coastal resiliency. And we're working on that. That was extended until about 6 months. So that's probably requires an update fairly soon again. The next one is the one today on transportation management. There's a lot of interest on this, and I'll be happy to talk about it. And the third one is the Water Quality Management Committee. And I'm preparing a presentation for that when we have time to do that in the next couple of weeks. So those 3 would kind of summarize where we are on each of the committees that I'm involved in. Tonight, I'd like to talk a little bit about transportation management. But before we get into it, Bob particularly has a lot of concerns. I have some information I want to share with other members, but I'm kind of reluctant to do that because of the open meeting law. Now, I guess I can get some information to Bob directly without going to everybody else, or perhaps the thing to do is to go to the planning department and they in turn circulate it. But some of these documents are preliminary and I'm reluctant to start releasing a lot of information until they get reviewed by the committee. Tom, do you have any comments on how I might move forward with that?
Well, I think that, you know, sharing information with a colleague is perfectly fine. We're not addressing the entire board. If Bob's got some questions about some of the work that you're doing, I think it's perfectly fine to chat them up and share that stuff. But as you pointed out, a committee that's in the midst of drafting things, they typically don't want to have too many different versions of things out there until they've got something ready for presentation.
Okay. This is a brief summary I put together on a little bit of a history on where this Transportation Management Committee is going. I shared it with the chairman as well, so I'm not speaking out of turn. Next slide, please. The brief history of transportation in town is fairly lengthy. There was a Transportation Management Committee set up in August 2009 and was authorized to do a certain number of things you see on this slide. And after they worked for a while with cadets from the military academy, they submitted a report and 4 members declined to stand for reappointment. So nothing happened. I was unable to find that report. Not only investigating here in town, but even going to the military academy, and I couldn't come up with the report itself. So that is, nothing happened with that. And that was more than, 10 years ago. Now, the Traffic Advisory Committee that was set up about 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and it's ongoing. And they look at relatively small things like crosswalks and other issues like that. But they don't signage, but they don't get into some of the policy issues that I believe is a requirement of the Transportation Management Committee as stated. Next slide, please. There's been a couple of reports. The Bikeways and Pedestrian Committee has a report done in 2016 by the Cape Cod Commission. It has some very specific things to be done. It's a very good report. It's worth reading. And it talks about different kinds of cycling programs and what is needed in terms of bikeways management. The next one was the Transportation Management Plan. That was done in 2016 by McMahon Associates, principally for the Route 28 corridor improvements. And there's a lot of very, very good information in there, both the appendices and elsewhere. And it's a very comprehensive study with short and long-term improvements. And I've recommended several times that this Transportation Management Committee pay a close look to the recommendations of that consultant, because they came up with a very good report, including parking strategies and safety improvements and things like that. Next slide. Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority has their own transit region, and they try to do a lot of things for the county. That was set up in 1976. That's ongoing for a long time. The Cape Cod Regional Policy Plan was developed about a year ago, and it's talks about preservation, protection of the unique resources, and that's an issue that has to be addressed as well. The Board of Selectmen Strategic Plan, unfortunately, does not specifically address transportation issues. Planning Board Local Comprehensive Plan, however, does and probably needs to be updated after things get going, and you're very much aware of what's involved there, increasing the transportation efficiency, et cetera. Budget properly, and encourage alternative environmentally sensitive modes of travel. I think that still makes sense. Next slide. So what happens now, the Transportation Management Committee established a committee on October of last year. They have 5 at-large members and several representatives for different committees. And in January of this year, or last year, they had 9 members and reduced it down to 7. And you can see the members who are on the committee with Ed DeWitt as chair. Now, the mission statement by the board that set up this committee in February has 6 specific things to be doing. Reviewing and analyzing all aspects of the transportation city, identifying issues, coordinating related issues with town and Cape agencies, reviewing the master plan, prepare and present an annual report, and other specific requests by the Board of Selectmen. So it's pretty comprehensive and extensive. Next slide, please. So what has the committee been doing? Well, we've had presentations and meetings on coordination activities. We've met with Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority, Tom Cahir, attended by Zoom. We've talked to the Department of Public Works on at least 2 or 3 different occasions. We've had the police and fire rescue departments participate in meetings. EDIC talked about what they're trying to do specifically with the proposed Depot Avenue area they want. SMART is that Southeast Mass Regional Transportation Task Force that looks at transportation not only on Cape Cod, but Southeast Mass, and they've been very aggressive in trying to do a lot of things. We met with them, the 2 of their representatives as well. There's a parking survey is now being prepared for public outreach, going to be reviewed. And we've recommended the Steamship Authority pursue a grant for island traffic because they're eligible to do that. We suggested the Board of Selectmen do the Select Board encourage that. They have not done that yet, but I think it's something that we can help do. Next slide.
I'm coming.
Okay, we've had meetings every bi-weekly for the last year generally. And these are some of the issues that we're trying to look at. Downtown parking, Falmouth Village. We're working on that. I'll come back to it in a minute. Regional transportation issues on Cape Cod, directional signage and wayfinding, which is an important thing, needs to be done fairly quickly. Freight deliveries, Falmouth Village. Complete Streets program at DPW. DPW is using that. There's a meeting on, I think it's 13th on Complete Streets. You may want to tune in on that. Steamship Authority truck traffic. Fortunately, the chair of this committee was also a Falmouth representative to the Steamship Authority, so he's very knowledgeable on the issues with the Steamship Authority. Future transportation facilities and public safety. Next slide. Some of the activities, specific thing what we're talking about doing now is a white paper on downtown parking. And Bob, I'd like to share that with you, if not anyone else, because you're very concerned about that. And I can give that to you later today. We have to give an annual summary report. Parking survey is being developed. Coordination with EDIC and Mass DOT on that hub on at Falmouth Station. They want to develop a transportation hub there with funding that has been proposed by Representative Senator Sue Moran. Various other improvements for vehicle and pedestrian safety, managed delivery on Falmouth Village. That's a big issue, particularly in the summertime. Truck traffic options, evaluate parking regulations, promote walking, cycling, develop wayfinding, directional signage, consult with the planning department, you guys, on proposed bylaw revisions. So there's a real potpourri of issues there that we're trying to address as time goes on. Next slide.
I think that was our last slide, Paul.
Maybe that's the last slide. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's as brief a summary as I could make without taking a lot of time. So I appreciate your time and interest in this committee.
Thank you, Paul, very much. Anybody have any comments or questions? Yes, Jim.
I read some of the details in the report, and the only thing I wanted to mention is there is talk of changing the 3-hour restriction to parking to 1 hour on Main Street. And I just want to understand how anyone could go to a restaurant, be told they have to wait 40 minutes to sit down and get their meal and be out in 20 minutes. So I think we need to, I understand how important it is to turn over parking, but you got to take a practicality. The 3-hour minimum, I think, works. And I would probably suggest we stay with that. We might be trying too hard and make it impossible to use Main Street if you make it 1 hour.
Well,
Pam?
there is no
Well,
parking.
you can't even, you can't even honestly go in and have your hair cut if it's an hour limit.
Right.
You know, it just won't work. There are just too many things. You can't go in and have lunch. You can't go in and really do much of anything.
But I did see that hour limit as being proposed.
No, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it's just counterproductive to Main Street businesses. And even going into a gallery. I'm being very serious. It's very hard to get in and out of a gallery in an hour. Why would you want to?
I'll
You're
have to
there to
recuse
enjoy
myself
the
if I
art.
keep this up.
Bob?
Who is it that complains about these things? Who brings up these issues?
Somebody who needs a haircut and can't get in time. I don't know.
You know, about the whole issue with downtown and the parking and all that. Who do we get letters to the Chamber of Commerce from tourists or residents? I want to know where the blowback comes from.
Right, what the origin is of all the,
Yeah.
Paul?
That's the purpose of the survey. The survey is being developed. Right now, in my opinion, it's too extensive, so being scaled down a bit. But it would have things like why you go downtown, how long you stay there, what do you do downtown, and the kinds of things you're talking about to get some specific information. We don't have that.
I mean, it looks like a solution looking for a problem.
I can't.
exactly.
Mhm.
One of the big problems is parking at Town Hall.
Yeah.
There's no time limit there. People go there for
Right.
day long. and there's no turnover.
Right.
So town hall parking is something that could be addressed
The
differently.
location for the town hall employees that would create more opportunities for turnover. As far as the hours go, town, there was no time limit in town hall. There's no time limit behind Ace Hardware, for example.
Mhm.
A lot of things
there-
go.
It's also minimal enforcement, so
Mhm.
you can
Um,
promulgate every rule you want, but if you can't enforce it, don't bother
Bother.
promulgating it.
And
And
Tom?
I'm guilty. I've been here since 8:30 this morning.
But at least you work there
Yeah, depends on who you ask.
sometimes.
Okay, Charlotte, yes. You're on mute, Charlotte.
Paul, you've undertaken a lot of work for us. Thank you. 3 committees, that's a lot. And you're
Yeah.
keeping up with them.
It is. It's quite a lot. But he's doing it extremely competently, too.
Yep.
So thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, Paul is the man about town.
14th of the plan of this committee. You may want to tune in on it. There is a very detailed email that I guess I can share with you that the chairman sent to Mr. Suso. And it outlines some of these issues that have been coming up time and time again. I mean, we've heard things anecdotally about putting a multi-level parking garage right next to the Chamber of Commerce and things like that, that I don't know where they're coming from, but no one on the committee is promoting that, for example.
That's coming from the ugly committee.
The Chamber of Commerce has been promoting that for about 7 years.
For quite a long time, Paul. That's the chamber.
But, just small things like when I walk my dog, I pass the post office. Post office has 20 spaces out back, about half used. Some people park behind Ace Hardware. Well, that ought to be a communication with the postal office that the people should park where they have dedicated parking. Things like that. We have, if we get Sherrick's Pond Trail going, that would be a perfect access to the parking at Lawrence School when school is not in session. There's a number of things can be done without paving, without completely changing down.
Yeah.
By the way, I also want to thank Paul for his dedication to getting that trail around Shiverick's Pond. Bill and I just recently took a walk around there. And the work that has been done to widen that trail and make it so much easier to walk on. Thank you, Paul.
I have a secret.
What?
The history of Shiverick's Pond
Ah,
being published in Spritzel magazine last month. I have not seen it.
It's going to the printer Friday.
Yeah. Sorry?
It's getting mailed out Friday.
ah,
Oh, good. I have not seen it yet, but it goes back to Henry Fay proposed donating land in 1905 to put a trail around Shiverick's Pond. That's how long we're waiting to do that. So
mhm. So all of you get a copy of that.
we have funding from the 300 Committee on Land. We have funding from the state, and we have funding from EDI, from Community Preservation. And Tom and I talked about it as recently as today, and we need to move on it, in my opinion.
So I really wanted to thank Paul for that too. That's something we can totally all enjoy right now. And it's not even completed. So thanks again. Okay, moving on. We have our next meeting on January 12th, and Tom had sent through things that are currently on the agendas for all those meetings. On the 12th, we've got well, you can see them. There are quite a few things already on there. The 25th of January is the virtual November 2020 town meeting. So there's no planning board business then, but the next day, assuming that it will be a one-night town meeting, we have a meeting, and there are certain things already on that. And February 9th and February 13th is our scheduled joint meeting with the select board. So we've got a full couple of months coming up. Is there anything anybody else wishes to bring up tonight?
What's that date again, Pat? February what for the BOS?
February 13th.
Okay.
Saturday, February 13th.
Oh, they did go with our suggestion then that it be a Saturday meeting. That's awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
It'd be
What
even
date?
better if it could be person to person, but hey, we get what we get, right? And Tom,
What's the
yes,
date of the
Paul?
meeting on Saturday?
Pardon?
The date of the meeting on Saturday?
February 13th.
13th.
All these
At
dates.
what
need to
time?
be-
What
I
time
don't-
is,
I don't
TB
know yet.
Time to be determined.
A number of things to be determined on that. Remember, we gave them the umbrella with all of the ribs coming out of it. And I think we've not heard anything back yet as to any suggestions they have for topics. So, anything else? Tom?
If I can share my screen again for a moment. As of today, we are live with our updated website. Here you see the planning board website, and at the bottom is the Davis Straits reset section. Here it takes you to the new link to the Davis Straits website that our consultants have put together for us. So as of today, the website is live. You can get to it at davisstraits.com or through our website. In addition, we've incorporated into that section the other information that we put together, the presentations, community resilience, Davis Straits reset, and the form-based code presentation. In addition to the link for Davis Straits, there's also a link to SurveyMonkey, to the survey for town, for folks who are looking at what we're asking to do at Davis Straits. So all this is live as of today, and we will be talking about this at every meeting. I know a guy who wanted to talk about Davis Straits at every meeting. 2021 is going to be a good year for that kid. So we have gotten the website live. We've got links between our website and their website. I went in and checked them all today. So we are in business. We were going to get an update every 2 weeks from our consultant as to how many surveys we received, how many people have chimed in. And we're also putting together the survey into a paper format to include in a mailer with upcoming tax bill, hopefully in February. So we're trying to get in paper as well as on computer, because as we know, not everybody has a computer that they're using.
Charlotte?
that looks really great. I was looking at it before. I'm hoping that our design guidelines that we adopted will be there.
Hopefully.
You would think.
It will. Paul?
Yeah, I suggest you also look at the website because it appears the town has reorganized all the different committees and departments into 7 groups. And that's something we talked about some time ago, particularly with the report from UMass Boston. But you may want to take a look at that as well.
Great. So
Yeah.
since we have a new town website, we ought to all explore it.
So
Okay,
I do want to point out that our design guidelines are on the website. They're not in the Davis Straits section. I'm just going to go back and share screen for a second. So
Mhm.
here at the bottom of our website is recodification, track changes, design guidelines for large scale development. So those are on our website and they have a link to them as well.
Thank you.
Part of the service.
okay. Anything else? Okay, it is now 8:13.
Move to adjourn.
Second,
We are adjourned.
Pat,
Good
I
night,
need to call-
everybody.
Pat, I
Happy
have a
New
private
Year.
question for you. I'm going to call you.
Okay, fine. Thank you.